On this episode of the John1911 Podcast, the ATF goes after Polymer 80, the remote machine gun attack, will Donald Trump buy Newsmax, and the student loan scam.
Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Danny, Marky, and Freeze, and this is episode 196 of the John1911 Podcast. And since the news and everything keeps changing fast and furious, I better give the date and the time. Today is Sunday, December 13th, exactly 9:02 a.m. So if we publish this podcast and something radically changes in the next 2, 3, 5, 6, 12, or 24 hours, don't hold it against us. So how's everybody doing so far this morning?
I'm doing great.
I'm doing very good.
So Freeze, was last night because you work last night, this is your work week, you're done for the week now, right?
Oh, no. I've got one, maybe two, maybe three more days. I don't know. We've got so many people out on disability right now. We're just all trying to cover shifts and make do. So I've got one more legitimate night, possibly two.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, with the COVID and everything that's going on right now, and and you're an essential worker. Like, I guess everybody's, because I'm used to you 7 on, 7 off, but I guess, yeah, you're not, you're working basically all the time, so.
Pretty much, it's crazy, we've got several people out on disability. I probably should have been out this week. I mean, I'm like, I was all kinds of messed up, but,
Yeah.
I sucked it up and manned up and sacked up and went to work.
Yeah,
Such a trooper.
Hey, somebody has to pay for us retirees.
That's right.
Wow. Man, I'm so sick and tired of supporting people on the dole. And yeah, that includes both of you guys, too.
Well, thank you for your contribution. Next time I drive through White Castles, I'll think of you, Freeze.
Hey, man, I've been carrying Marky on my back for years. I can't handle you too, Danny.
Well, now you're saddled, so tough shit.
Now you're saddled to tough shit. It is, hey, no breaks even on Sunday. Okay, this is a rough crowd around here, Freeze.
It is.
So you know what? Before we go into all the other stuff, let's talk about something. We're going to talk about something that Freeze has a little bit of experience with. So I guess Thursday it broke in the trades. I'll call them the trades for the firearms industry, that the ATF had shown up at, I believe the company is called Polymer 80, and they are in Nevada, I believe, and they make all of these. I hate the phrase ghost gun, but I
hate that phrase too, but yeah.
That's, because the left makes a name, and then they use that name as a bludgeon, and so now it's ghost gun. So apparently the ATF showed up on Thursday at Polymer 80, and for those that don't know, the Polymer 80 company is where you buy all these parts, and you can assemble and make basically a Glock copy at home. And then the word was that on Friday, the ATF started showing up at least. I mean, it's only been confirmed possibly at one place, but apparently the ATF showed up at somebody's home or wherever, or I guess the shipping location, wherever this Polymer 80 kit was shipped, and basically said, surrender the kit. And the reason why I'm talking to Freeze is one of the few people, because statistically it's pretty rare. It is. It really is very rare, where the ATF has shown up at your place and said, give me the shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very rare.
It's very rare. And you've had it happen to you.
I have. It was years and years ago, but it was on a parts kit.
And go into it a little bit. Explain, because we've talked about it on pod before, but explain to the listener how this came to be and how they ended up at your house.
Okay. So this was, I don't know, in the 90s sometime. I bought from, I believe I bought it from Century. I I bought a Russian PPH-42 parts kit.
42 or 43?
Uh,
Is there a 42? I didn't know there was
no,
a 42.
it's a 43. I think, yeah, it's a PPSH-43 with the wooden stock, and is like the 44 that's got the metal stock. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, so when these kits were brought in, they're parts kits, so they're cut up. And when they were cut up to, the ATF, standards. The problem is with parts kits, and it's always been this way, their standards today may change tomorrow.
Yeah.
So what happened is they decided that the trunnion was still included with the parts kit, and that was not a legal part because, frankly, it would have been too easy to reassemble. Well, too easy isn't really the correct term.
No, that's actually no. Go ahead and stay with that thought because that's going to translate into what's happening now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So they basically deemed with the trunnion it would be too easy to turn this back into an operational firearm. So I'm sure they went to Century and confiscated all the trunnions off of any parts kits they had left. But then I only can assume that Century gave the names to all the people that have bought these guns because the ATF shows up at the house saying, yeah, on that parts kit you bought, we need that trunnion.
And we need it right now.
Oh, yeah. Now, in all fairness, it wasn't like, I was sitting down to, Monday dinner and they knocked on my door. They did contact me, and they're like, we need to come out there. And I'm like, okay. I had a CNR license, so it's not like, you can run and hide from the ATF. Not that I'd even want to. So anyway, they showed up, and that's the only time I've had the ATF actually show up to my house we'll say for an issue. I've talked to the ATF over the years. Generally, they're really nice people to deal with.
Mm-hmm. I will second this. We had some conversations with the ATF. I don't know if it was January of 2020 or if it was end of 2019. I can't remember. But I have to say, the ATF office out of the Cincinnati field office, I couldn't believe how incredibly great they were to work with.
Look, the ATF gets a real bad rap on the internet. They do. And look, and I'm not saying the ATF are sweethearts and angels. They can do shady shit, and they do stuff that I disagree with on a daily basis. However,
any large bureaucratic organization can have problems.
But the one-on-one experiences I've had with our local ATF office here in Cincinnati has been nothing but positive. They're friendly to talk to on the phone. They're easily accessible if you want to meet them in person. They're very helpful. They're very knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
I have no complaints with the ATF.
We may have some policy complaints, but you've never had any complaints with them privately.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I have a lot of complaints with the ATF as far as policy goes, but look, my local Cincinnati office of the ATF has no control over their policy, either. So
mm-hmm. I was shocked. Like the last contact I had with the ATF field office, and it was within 12 months, probably maybe 14. But there was a woman down there, and we had some stuff we had to get addressed, and this woman. She was out of town, and she'd come back off vacation, was working on her, clearing her backlog of things. And she was calling me and talking to me and addressing some of this stuff. And it was like a Friday or it was like a Saturday or Sunday night or something. It was 10 o'clock at night.
I remember it was late on a weekend.
I was so shocked that this woman, she's like, yeah, I'm just trying to, and she was a sweetheart. She wasn't like, anything you want, Marky. I mean, she wasn't like that, but I mean, but no, I bet I talked to her for 40 minutes. And on a weekend night, and she called me. And I was like, maybe she loves the John 1911 Armory. I don't know, but I was so impressed. So I guess we'll go ahead and say that because we have to balance some of this out. So, Free, they did call you. They didn't show up with guns and an armored vehicle and try to shoot your dog.
Roger Stone.
Yeah, well, that wasn't the ATF. So that was the FBI probably or the sheriff's office. I don't know. I don't know who that was. So don't hang it on the ATF, Danny. But hold on, let's make a point. So let's get back to the story. There's stories on the internet right now that the Polymer 80, they showed up at the Polymer 80 place, and now they apparently showed up at this guy's place. Now, the trades have shown one example where they have shown up at somebody's home and the guy has a receipt and the Polymer 80 kit. But they're not saying who this guy is.
Well, okay, now, look, I can't speak for all ATF field offices and agents that work out of them. Excuse me. But, so, if I bought a Polymer 80 kit a couple of years ago, back when they first came out, and we addressed the Polymer 80 when it came out several years ago, and I told you then I thought it was stupid. I was not impressed with it at all, but, it is what it is. And if I have my Polymer 80 Glock, in the gun safe, and I shoot it on a regular basis, and the ATF shows up and says, "Hey, we need that kit," I would be more than...
If you shoot it, it's no longer a kit; it's a firearm.
Exactly. So, but if they're confiscating the Polymer 80 kit, I assume they're going to give you time to disassemble the firearm to give them the lower receiver part with all the jigs.
I think you're saying something we don't know to be true, and we have to be very clear. And the trades have not made this clear to people. My understanding is they confiscated. I know they confiscated supposedly one kit from one guy. I did not hear, and it has not been made clear to me that they confiscated a functioning firearm. And they also have not identified who this person was, and if this person for some reason shouldn't have had the kit. Now I found more information of this because like 1911 guys, like, oh my God, for people that don't know, when the 1968 Gun Control Act is when all of this stuff really kind of came into being. And they always left exemptions for people to make guns at home because it's a long-standing American tradition, because a lot of times, a lot of firearms going back, in our history were manufactured at home or, by, what's a gunsmith. Like in 1968, kind of created the FFL system and created a gunsmith. But what that did is, there's different levels of FFLs and manufacturers and gunsmiths. But, like in America, we don't necessarily have a lot of these unified national standards. Like, for example, if John 1911 wanted to make barrels and sell them on the open market, we do not have to send barrels to a proof house in Washington before we can sell them. Or if we want to make a gun for sale, whether it's a rifle or pistol, we don't have to send a gun to a proof house and get proof marks on it. Most countries around the world do. That's what a proof mark is. And what a proof mark is... Go ahead.
Yeah, most European countries, you have proof marks on the barrel. Belgium, England, France. That's very common over in Europe.
But a proof mark is, what they've done is they take a proof load. A proof mark isn't, this is proof that this gun exists and you paid your tax. A proof mark is put on by a proof house, and they put in a proof load, and then they fire it, and if the gun works and doesn't explode, they go, this is safe. And they stamp it, and then it's now legally to be sold. We don't have any of this in the U.S. Like, there's a lot of things that happen around the world that we don't have here. So, like, this Polymer 80, like, making guns at home is, a real gray area in the United States. Well, the thing is, it's like, you can buy 1911 receivers or buy 1911, I'd call them lower blanks without rails, and you have to machine your rails and machine your holes and your sear hole, pinholes and all that. But that takes a lot of work. Apparently, from what I can tell as of Sunday, the ATF is not going after homemade polymer guns. They're not even going after all the Polymer 80 kits. And this is going to circle back to what you said, Freeze, about your trunnion. My understanding is right now the ATF is going after a specific kit that's being sold by Polymer 80 called the Buy, Build, Shoot kit. And the Buy, Build, Shoot kit is you give them the money, they send you a package. You basically have to have zero knowledge. You just look at this and go, oh, a disc and a drill. And I don't know how easy these things are to put together, but apparently it's so easy. It's understood. You buy this, you're basically getting a gun. And all you have to do is basically assemble it. So the Glock store, which has locations in California and Tennessee, apparently the ATF issued a letter at some point earlier this year or last year and said, if you're going to sell Polymer 80 kits or 80% Glock kits, you cannot package it with all of these parts. You have to break them up. And apparently the Glock store did this. Like, you can still buy everything that they're confiscating from Polymer 80. You can still buy all of that online legally, apparently. Mm-hmm. But they don't want it all packaged together in a dumb kit because they want at least somebody, to go back to your point, Freeze, at least to have to read a book to figure out how to put this together, or at least read a set of instructions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, like let's kind of compare this to like building an AR. And look, say you're going to build an AR with an 80% lower and mill it out yourself and make a quote unquote ghost gun.
We have Scott Mayer did an article for us on our website. He goes through the process that he did an AR.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. The ATF they don't want someone to assemble a kit where it's like, okay, here's an 80% lower, here's a complete upper, here's a lower parts kit, here's a buffer tube assembly with the buttstock, here's all the drill bits that you need to hog out the 80% lower, and they don't want that. You have to work at it. Like, I don't build the quote.
Hold on. If you buy the AR lower, and I am not familiar with Polymer 80 or these companies, their products at all. But here's the thing, if there is a theoretical buy, build, shoot kit for an AR-15, if it's actually even billed as that, you put that together, you still don't technically have a functioning firearm. Legally, you have a firearm, but you still got to put an upper on it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If someone sold a kit that came with an upper and an 80% lower with basically everything to build it. Now, like when I built,
you know what? I bet you're right. I bet you they would shut that down.
Yeah, they probably would. Now, see, I don't like the whole concept of the ghost gun thing. And I know guys are like, oh, there's no paperwork to it, blah, 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 whatever. I get all their arguments. But look, the government knows who the hell I am. I am not worried about filling out a 4473. That's like the least of my worries. And when I build an AR, I buy a complete, lower that's serialized and stamped, and I have to fill out a 4473 on it, just like buying any other firearm. I do that for several reasons. One, I don't have the time or the patience to take an 80% lower, which, by the way, is a misnomer. It's 80% complete. No, it could be 10% complete. 80% is just a number they stamp on it. You know,
80% is a name, not an actual mathematical measurement.
yeah.
There's no legal definition of a percentage of a lower.
Exactly. You know, so I don't have the time, energy, or fortitude to complete a lower. I just don't want to do it.
There's a
And
quality issue too.
yeah, there is a quality issue there as well. But on top of that, I don't like to have a firearm that I can't actually sell. Now, you can take one of these quote unquote unserialized ghost guns and sell it if you have it serialized and then it has to go through this big, long, drawn out bullshit process. And it's just easier just to buy one complete, fill out the 4473, get it legally, and bam, you're in business.
Okay, so you know what, you glossed over an issue, and I guess we gotta readdress that as well, because we don't have national proof houses, and also with how does the government handle serializing these guns? Well, the government only mandated in 1968 that firearms had to have serial numbers. Now, manufacturers put serial numbers on guns depending on the situation, where they were from or what they were trying to do. But the government created that entire system in 1968. Obviously after because we'd had JFK shot earlier, Bobby Kennedy was shot, Martin Luther King was shot. All this, this big movement to do something. So they created a system. If you are at home and you build a gun, you do not have to put a serial number on it. However, if you ever wish to, and how is this handled for you? Like, let's say I'm your brother and you die, and I inherit you made a gun that doesn't have a serial number on it. I can't remember how that's handled.
Okay, that gun has to be. It basically, you have to contact the ATF and explain the situation, and they will render the decision on it, whether it needs to be serialized. And to serialize it, you just take it to a gunsmith, and we had that done with the Rock AR, and then he will process it, and it'll be fine, and then it can legally go to you.
Yeah, he manufactured it and put it on his books.
Yes, exactly. And that's what you would basically do. You would send it to a gunsmith who can't, and it can't just be, Jim Bob's gunsmithing shop out of his garage. He has to have, what is it, an 07 manufacturing license, I believe. I could be wrong.
There's different levels, but 07 is a manufacturer. But hold on, let me go ahead and so people know what you're talking about. We had built a Daewoo. What's that gun called?
The T91.
T91. Yeah.
T91, yeah.
The T91, and it's a Taiwanese service rifle. And so Wolf has been bringing in the uppers into the U.S., and we bought an upper. It's like a 14.5-inch pin, so it's legal 16. But what we did is we did not want to have a lower, which is the actual firearm, that had like cold on it. Like we wanted it to look. We
wanted it to look like a rock lower.
Republic of China, Taiwanese lower. Yeah. So we went out and we found, I guess you could technically call it an 80% lower. We found an aluminum block of metal that looked kind of like an AR-15 lower. It was in the white. It was missing some holes. It had no manufacturer's markings on it. It had no serial number markings on it. It had markings from Taiwan on it.
Yeah, it had the Taiwanese markings on it. And actually, it did have a number but all the receivers had the same number. It was just basically marked like a Republic of China, Taiwan T91 lower.
Military lower. So then we took that hunk of aluminum that looked kind of like an AR-15 lower that was not finished, and we took it over to a manufacturer. He finished the work on it. He took that number with his manufacturer's mark. He roll marked it to ATF standards, which at that point he manufactured an AR-15. Like this went from a hunk of metal to a gun, and then he he serialized it, and he put that on his books. And so forever, if someone forward traces this lower, like 100 years from now, they're like, what the fuck is this thing? They would trace it. They'd go to that manufacturer who we hired, go to his bound book, and be like, this is where this comes from.
But I tell you what, I can't guarantee this, but out of all the Wolf T91 uppers that were imported into this country, I would be willing to bet we're probably in a very, very small minority of people that actually have a clone of a T91, because we bought all. Yeah, I mean, you went out and searched long and hard for like the correct pistol grip, the correct buffer tube in stock, and I mean, this thing, if you set it next to a T91, well, you'll be able to tell the difference. But I bet there's very few people in the United States right now that have a Taiwanese T91 that's as close as ours to the original.
I bet you there's probably less than, I don't know, maybe, I mean, people that went as far as we did, I mean, it's probably maybe 100 people.
Yeah, and by the way, Danny, just on a side note, we've got stupid money in this gun.
Yeah.
I mean, we got stupid money in it, but it's a cool gun in the armory as a reference piece. And
it is.
I mean, you just can't get real T91s here in the United States.
Well, the thing is, hold on, I'm going to make this point, then we'll, excuse me, then we'll go ahead and get off this little bit. So look, one of my concerns, Freeze, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with you, my concern with the ATF let me just do something real quick. Hold on.
Okay,
all right. I had to clear my throat. So I don't want the ATF to basically box the manufacturing of firearms to such a degree that it limits technology coming down the road. Because, 30 years from now, the reality is, we hope that, some kind of 3D printer thing can make, if you need a gun part for a Sturmgewehr, is the classic example, you just get the plans off the internet that somebody's put together and you put it in your home in your 3D printer that everybody has in their garage, and they make a Sturmgewehr part. Well, is that, right now, that's kind of a real gray area. If you're manufacturing a part, or you manufacture, and what's happening is the bar and skill level, the education and equipment needed to achieve technical accomplishment in assembling firearms is getting a little bit lower and a little bit lower, and the ATF is having a hard time trying to figure all this out. Now, this ghost gun thing, I think what's probably done some of this in, Danny, do you remember, and it just happened this year, there was a police car in California. It was sitting there on the road. It was parked like near a stadium or something. And a guy walked up and just started. It was an SUV, and just started shooting in the car. And then he ran away, and it was on video. And he ran away, and then like the two cops bailed out of the car, and they're covered in blood. And like the woman, the female police officer, she was shot in the face. And she's rendering aid to her partner. Dave, you remember all this, right? This story?
Yes, I do. Very clearly.
It has come out that the weapon used in that crime was a Polymer 80 gun, and actually may have been a buy-build shoot kit. And I think that's what's really set this off.
Well, I do have a question on that. As the ATF, we'll say, raided the Polymer 80 company, all because everything was in one package, the end result would be the same, even if you put those parts in two packages. You're getting into, I feel it's almost getting into semantics, because one package, okay, you could do it. Okay, I'll just order it on two different orders. End result, same package. So isn't it a redundant point to even think that way?
No, but here's the thing. This is where we're not politically correct, but we're telling the truth. This is the truth. And nobody wants to admit this. Okay. I don't know this for certain, but I would imagine, and from what I've seen on the internet, I believe Polymer 80 kits are probably most popular in California, and I wouldn't be surprised in New York and Chicago. And the reason they're popular in California, like, 40 million people live in California, 60 million people. The state of California has so restrictive gun laws that, like, new guns can't even come into the state because they're not on a list of approved guns.
They don't pass the drop test.
They don't
pass the whatever.
submit them. They don't submit them. I mean, like, you can't even. I believe they close the roster to even add new guns. So people in California buy these kits so they can have a gun. Well, what's happened is, and nobody wants to admit this, but we all know it's true. Look, if I say organized crime, people think Italians eat pasta and with a white tie and a white suit and a white shirt, is a group. If I say gangbanger, people think of an image of Snoop Dogg. Okay, neither one of those preconceived notions is true. They're basically the same. If you're organized crime on the East Coast, organized crime on the West Coast, you're buying these kits. And what's happening is organized crime elements in Los Angeles and in California, they have figured out that they can buy these kits, buy, build, shoot, get it. It's a couple drill presses, apparently. It's not that hard. And it's enough of a gun. I'd probably take a buy, build, shoot kit in my waistband over a Raven 25 caliber pistol if I was a gangbanger.
I agree with you on that.
And that's what's happening. And so they want to break this up so stupid people can't easily build guns.
Well, but you know what? Let me just, on a side note here. You're talking about, the organized crime, quote unquote, gangbangers, whatever, buying these kits and building them. I agree with that. Now let me go back. Okay, so
but there are millions and millions of law-abiding people in California that buy these kits because it's probably the only viable way they can get a gun because they pass such restrictive gun laws out there. It's gotten retarded, and so guess what happens? Water seeks its own level.
Okay, and we've talked about this on pod a long time ago, but here's the thing. People go, oh, well, these gangbangers, they're dopers and blah, blah, blah. They can't do all this shit. So, okay, years ago, Danny, this is a story that you probably are not familiar with. It was a winter time. I think it was like November, December. It had just snowed. And we were actually, Marky and myself, were getting ready to go down to a place in Kentucky to shoot sporting clays. Well, I had left I had a Kel-Tec,
I don't want to tell that story.
Well, no, but the interesting point about this is when the Kel-Tec was stolen out of my truck, about a year and a half later, I actually got it back. But when I got it back, I had a quick draw clip on the Kel-Tec when it was stolen. Well, when you put a quick, you take the pins out, you attach it, and it's got, certain attachment features, Well, when I got it back, the quick draw clip was gone, but they didn't have pins to put the gun back together. So what they did, Danny, you're familiar, they're two-piece rivets, one's a male end, one's a female end, and they thread together.
I know exactly what you mean.
Okay, well, where the pins that were originally missing because they took the clip draw off of it, they had gone to, I don't know, Lowe's, Home Depot, wherever, and they had bought these rivets and slid them in there in lieu of the pins and screwed it together, and the gun functioned. So, look, just because you're a gangbanger doesn't necessarily mean you're not handy around tools. Gangbangers.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
I mean, gangbangers can put these Polymer 80 kits together.
Yes, they can. Well, then I'm gonna switch to another. It seems like a non-related story, but it is a related story. But let me tell you one that we were always surprised by. There was a Glock 10 millimeter, Glock Model 20, that I was involved with. That was recovered by Cincinnati Police Department on a gangbanger traffic stop, and two people in the vehicle pull them out of the vehicle, and they discover this Glock 20, and it's a stolen gun. And what was most interesting about this gun was when it was stolen, it didn't have any ammo. But these guys, it's going to say, you're listening to this podcast, you're a gun guy. But these people, they figured out that this did not take 9mm. This did not take whatever, and they somehow got 10mm ammo and loaded this gun up. And it was kind of a surprise on some level. It was like, where do they, because the thing is, you have to realize there are people listening to this like, well, no one cares, Marky. Like, this is how it works. It's like, well, yes and no. On the same year, I had watched a guy come into a gun store with and he needs a magazine for his Glock, or he needs a holster for his Glock. He needs something for his Glock, and they're talking, and it's like, okay, and the guy's like, it doesn't look like he's, person of the year, but he's fine, and he buys whatever. Then he comes back in like an hour later, is like, dude, this doesn't, what the fuck, this doesn't work. It's like, what are you talking about? Well, you need this and this for a Glock, right? And he's like, oh, no, man. Like, I think it might have been a magazine or something. And so the guy at the store's like, can you bring your pistol in? It's fine. Just bring he's like, all right, I'll bring my pistol in. Guy walked in with a high point pistol. Walked in with a high point. And then the guy behind the counter's like, dude, what the fuck? It's like, this isn't a goddamn Glock. This is something else. And it's not even the caliber that you think it is. And the guy literally is like, oh, man, motherfucker, that told me it was a fucking Glock. And it's like, my point is, you see such a wide disparity of people on the street that are so dumb that it's almost, it really gets your attention when you see something like kind of, of accomplishment or skill.
Actually, I have a little bit of addition to that story. Yesterday in Chicago, they had a gun buyback program. It looked like a High Point showroom. It was it was unbelievable.
Okay, let me ask you a point here, Danny. How can any city or government agency have a buyback program when they didn't sell shit to you to begin with? They're not buying back anything.
Well, yeah, so they make up this shit so they can just, it's a way that gets
it's the ghost gun argument.
But
I hate how these anti-gun liberals just make shit up like this, and it just becomes part of the dictionary, It just,
well, and they were giving $100 for a $35 High Point, so it was very economically feasible. I mean, there were a couple of K-frames in there, but other than that, I mean, it was Ravens and High Points, and it was unbelievable.
Every buyback you go to, you see, because I've been around at least one of them. You see two things. People who deliberately know they've got some piece of crap gun that's worth nothing, and they're like, you know what, I'd take $100 gift card for this.
Yeah.
And then, but it'll be like at a church or be some location, and there'll be a line, or there'll be like people parking to go take the gun buyback, and there'll be enterprising gun collectors who'll be sitting out on the street looking at people, and they'll come like, hey man, what you got? And I'll tell you what, I'm this or that. Or I'll give you, dude, they're going to give you $100 for that. I'll give you $200. And the reason why some of this happens, we've all read the story. Like this actually happened, I think, somewhere in Connecticut. Somebody did a buyback program, like this one, bring it in, whatever, amnesty, no, don't ask, don't tell, we don't care. Just if you got a gun and it doesn't have an owner, or you're afraid something's going to happen. And this woman walked in with a Sturmgewehr, a German STG-44 Sturmgewehr, and everything was slated to be destroyed. This gun's worth probably, I don't know, $40,000.
Every bit of it. Every fucking bit of it.
And the thing is, it's like, holy fuck, what are we going to do? And they literally had to come up with some way to get this gun, to intercept it, to like legally make it so it doesn't end up being destroyed and it ends up in some museum or collection or something. And like, you see that kind of stuff. But there's always a market in capitalism. Capitalism will create the Polymer 80. Capitalism will create the guy standing outside the buyback program. But let's go back to California. And this seems like an unrelated story, but it has everything to do with the Polymer 80 story and the buy, build, shoot thing. And actually, this story is about Apple computers. And you're like, how in the fuck is this possible? It's real simple. This did not get a lot of press nationally because Apple Computer, California, big money, liberal Democrats. Apple's head of global security facing bribery charges, November 24, 2020. You guys hear about this?
No.
Yes.
Danny?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Well, Freeze, this is going to come as a surprise to you. Apple's head of global security, Thomas Moyer, has been charged with bribery in relation to obtaining concealed firearms licenses. As reported by the BBC, now mind you, I didn't just say reported by NBC.
Yeah, no,
not reported by Fox News California.
Yeah, the BBC.
Yeah, because the thing is, a lot of times, a lot of these kinds of stories, if you want to know the national news stories happening around the country of interest, sometimes you have to go to the press outlets outside of the country because they won't carry them here. Okay? So, or like it'll be like at a local, like the local Channel 7 may do a thing, but it won't get picked up by national. It won't get picked up by networks. So unless you're actually reading and consuming news at 150 affiliate news stations, you miss these stories. As reported by the BBC, Moyer is accused of offering $70,000 worth of iPads to police officers in return for the licenses, which are required to lawfully carry a concealed weapon in California. Two police officers, County Under Sheriff Rick Sung and Sheriff's Captain James Jensen, these are two high-ranking police officers. These are not patrolmen, have also been charged for requesting bribes for concealed firearms licenses. Now, here's the thing. What they did is I think the dude was giving them $70,000 worth of iPads. Now, what does this have to do with Polymer 80s in California? Here's what it has to do with. Look, I guarantee you that Danny, who's the CEO of Apple?
Not Jobs. That tongue-tied right now.
He's a gay guy.
Yeah, why has he got to be a gay guy, dude?
I don't know.
His first name's Bill. I can't think.
Whoever. Hey, I can't. We do this on the fly here at the John1911 Podcast.
Tim Cook.
Tim Cook, yes, Tim Cook.
The only reason I know that name is because, well, he's a gay guy, and I roll in those circles.
Now, his poster's up at the Badlands, right? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. That's a Badlands joke for free.
And,
so hold on.
We went to dinner together. Okay.
Hey, you were protected. Your wife was there.
Oh, that's true.
Wait a minute, Danny, you didn't notice how friendly the waiter was at that restaurant?
Yeah, only when he whispered Freeze's order back to him in his ear is what got me noticing. Other than that, nah, not too much.
Okay, so hold on. Let's get back. Let's get
back
to the story.
Danny, when you pay $100 for a steak, you expect a shoulder massage.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but I didn't know your shoulders were above your knees.
Okay. So okay, hold on.
Okay, let's get back on track.
See, Tim Cook, Apple.
Yeah.
Like I think Apple is the most, or the largest by value company in the history of the world, possibly, like $1 trillion company or something. Like, look, I remember Tim Cook. There was some story where Tim Cook, like there was some gay guy out there, because Tim Cook is apparently gay. He doesn't lean in with it apparently, but everyone knows he's gay. He came out at some point.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
Some gay guy is obsessed with him and like, I don't know, was doing shit or sending shit. I don't know what happened, but they got a restraining order. Like Apple's security team got a restraining order. Here's the thing. You're the CEO of a multi billions of dollars company. You're a public person. You have so many security issues, stalker issues, wackadoodle issues. You need guns. Your security team needs guns. I've had no contact with Apple security. I've never trained with them. I've never met them. I've never talked to them. But there is no way those guys are not armed up to their goddamn eyeballs. There is no way.
They have to be. Look, we're John1911. On the scale of Apple, we are not even a microcosm of their feces.
Okay, but hold on.
We're nothing. But we have stalkers.
Okay, I don't know. I know. Stop. But we're not going to go into that.
No, but I'm just saying, when you get a guy like Tim Cook.
Wait, just stop. Listen, I want to focus on this. It's not just Apple. Okay. California has all these crazy gun laws, okay? Like everything we've just gone through, Polymer 80 lowers and like the roster and the drop test and all this crap and all these people out there.
Okay.
All these companies are in California. All of these super uber valuable tech companies in Silicon Valley, all these venture capitalist companies out there in Silicon Valley, all of these superstars and heads of these media studios and movie studios and the dudes that make Star Wars and the dudes that make the Smurfs, and there's money and there's publicity, and what they never talk about, there are tons and tons and tons of security issues. And out there in California, private security is big business. Everyone I know that's worked private security for VIPs, and I've known quite a few, I've worked with a few of them, they all end up in California because that's where the goddamn money is. And here's the thing. If you're a broke motherfucker, you have to get a gun in California through a Polymer 80 because you don't know anybody. If you're a rich motherfucker in California to get by these gun laws, you show up with $70,000 of iPads at the sheriff's office because it's so out of control that there's all of the market will fix it. And that's what's happening in California. The gun laws in California are making all of these problems.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. I think you're actually hitting the nail right on the head.
Mm-hmm. Like people, they keep it, like they really don't. The Los Angeles Police Department has something that most police departments don't have. And I'm not talking about the SWAT team. The Los Angeles Police Department has a full-time, dedicated, celebrity stalker security division. And every day their phone rings. Madonna calls them. That guy showed up in my fucking house again. Britney Spears calls them. That crazy woman says she's my wife. Or Tim Cook calls him and says, this gay dude is trying to smash the windows at the front of the Apple building again.
And as crazy and preposterous as that sounds, that's actually a very legitimate issue because these people deal with this on a day in and day out basis. But you know what LA's problem is? LA's problem is they don't have anyone on the PD named Harry Callahan.
That's right. Well, I was going to say LA's problem today is they're not Texas because everybody's moving to Texas, apparently.
Yeah, that's true. And look, Texas, if the mass exodus continues, within 20 years, Texas may be a blue fucking state.
Oh my God! Let's see. I did Oracle's moving, HT's moving. like a bunch of people are moving.
Tesla.
Tesla moved. Yeah, Tesla moved.
Well, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear Texas moving to a blue state, but you know what? If all the blue people out of California move to Texas, maybe California will turn into a red state because, truthfully, 2/3 of the state is red. Unfortunately, the population that dictates everything is blue. So, I mean, technically within the next 20 years, we could see Texas turn into a blue state and California technically turn into a red state.
Not with the open borders. Not with the open borders and not with the voter fraud.
Maybe not, but I'm just saying, hypothetically, it's a very strong possibility.
Well, it's already happened in Nevada and Arizona.
Yeah.
So,
hey, you know what? I want to talk about this because we're kind of talking about crazy gun stuff, and this was such a cool story. I mean, it's kind of scary, but in warfare, it's going to change. Danny, we talked about this like in group chat weeks ago. The Iranian nuke scientist that was assassinated in Iran, obviously because he's Iranian. Do you remember that story, Danny?
Oh, very well.
Yeah. Well, did you hear the So this guy, he's riding in a car. He's got detail. I guess he's their J. Robert Oppenheimer, nuclear daddy of the nuclear program over there. And he was outside of some kind of vacation location, city or resort town or something in Iran. And his vehicle or convoy was attacked. It was like a machine gun attack or something, and he got killed. Danny, did you hear the specifics of what happened?
What I had heard and what I had read is that they are blaming the Israelis for it.
Yes, they are. They are blaming the Israelis for it. But did you hear they haven't captured any Israeli, as far as we know. There's been no agents captured. There's no they haven't identified oh yeah, this guy. I mean, they may have identified people and they're they fled the country before, but the specifics, the trigger man, the trigger guy, the people that actually shot the gun, they never caught those guys.
I haven't heard any more further other than them blaming Israel for it.
Well, apparently the people who pulled the trigger on the gun, they were not in Iran. They were in Israel.
Really?
Check this out. So I haven't heard if this was a stationary attack or a moving attack. But apparently the vehicle was, the target vehicle was moving down a road, and there was a Nissan, there was some Japanese vehicle, I think it was probably a truck, apparently had a machine gun in the back of it that was remotely controlled via satellite, and they suspect in Israel. And what happened was this gun was slaved somehow through remote control and literally made headshots on the guy, the target, in the car. It didn't just light up the car. It literally was that's the dude. They could see it, and they pulled the trigger and put rounds into him. One of his bodyguards threw himself over the scientist and was subsequently also hit. This apparently was a belt-fed machine gun this was done with. And then, this, I have very quick, so boom, 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 this is going on. And then when the attack is over, this truck exploded.
There goes the evidence.
Possibly, a lot of it. And it's and so.
Well, okay. Let me interject here. Why use a computer hacked machine gun to kill the guy if you could have just exploded the fucking truck from day one?
Well, because no, because running a truck at a vehicle or convoy is a something that everybody's ready for.
Oh, okay. So what you're saying is the truck with the machine gun wasn't the truck that the guy was in.
Yeah, the truck with the machine gun was not. Yeah.
Okay, so the truck with the machine gun was doing convoy security, It wasn't
No,
the
no,
truck
no,
that the guy
No,
was in.
no,
it
no,
Okay.
no.
rolled up on the victim's car.
With the
The truck with the
Okay.
machine
the
gun.
truck with the
Okay.
machine gun, was either sitting on the side of the road or sitting in a location where it was able to shoot at this vehicle, or the truck with the machine gun possibly was rolling down the road with traffic and shot, oh yeah, there's
Okay.
a truck, and
Oh,
all of a sudden machine gun fire came out of it. Then that truck exploded. Like
okay.
this
Gotcha.
could go one of two ways. This is either we are that much closer to the Terminator, okay, scenarios here, or the Iranians are making a lot of this up because sometimes the Iranians do a lot of this. They pretend they have all this technology, but what they also do is they will make excuses, and they will say things like Israel has such high tech abilities to do things that nobody could ever stop, and so they got us this time. So you can't always believe what this is reported, but if it is true as what's being reported, and apparently the guy being shot in the head is true, because you could see it. Like the guy, not everybody in the vehicle was killed. Like I think not every like it wasn't like the machine gun wasn't hosed, or the car wasn't hosed by machine gun fire. And
Okay.
it's such an astounding story that it's like, wow, this is one of those seminal moments in warfare that is going to probably change. It's going to be something that everybody now is going to watch out for, like when they blew up the prime minister of Lebanon's convoy, Hariri, years ago. I think Syria did it, but this because he was anti-Syrian, and like this guy, he was, they like instead of like trying to attack a convoy, they blew up the whole street. Like they were like, oh, this convoy was so well protected because they knew that the Syrians were going to make a run at the guy, that they just said, well, you know what? We're not going to try to make a run at a convoy. We're just going to blow up the entire street. And they literally blew up an entire street to get this guy. And they don't talk about it too much. Like the Secret Service knows about it, and the Presidential Protective Detail knows about it. That's why they're so creepy about driving around, and they check all the shit all the time.
Well,
This is going to be one of those.
well, that takes the whole Franz Ferdinand assassination to a whole new level. Level. It really does.
Yeah, it's pretty.
It's like, okay, you take Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Well, for those that don't know, kicked off World War One. I mean, honestly, this is like taking that type of an assassination to a whole new technical level.
Precept. What was that guy's name that shot him? Precept. What was his name?
Oh my God, what the hell was his name?
Giuseppe Precept, maybe. I can't even remember.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you know what? I honestly I don't remember his name.
Yeah,
but
it kicked off World War One.
I mean, this guy ultimately is the cause of several million deaths over the course of several years. I mean,
if you subscribe to the theory that World War II is just a continuation of World War One, that guy shooting the Archduke, for example, like Russia. Like this was people today, people don't realize, they're like, oh my God, the Russians, they lost so many people. The Russians lost how many people in World War II? Was it like they lost 18% of their population?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, but you know what though? That's kind of it's actually kind of a skewed statistic, because the truth is many people that the Russians lost to, say, the Germans, the Russians killed enough of their own people to meet that number. I mean, look, life expectancy in the Soviet Union during World War II was very, very, very cheap.
Yeah. It's just interesting, to think about, the Russians, the numbers that came out about what the lives lost in World War II and World War I, but the lives lost just in Russia in World War II literally didn't actually come out until probably the 70s or the 80s. Like, or maybe not officially didn't come out after the Berlin or after the fall of the Soviet Union. Like, they lost. Like, did they lose? Like, I mean, did the Russians lose 10 million soldiers or something too?
Oh,
it's unreal.
The Russians are, well, I will say the Soviets. They lost. Oh my God, their numbers.
Do you know the number?
No, I don't know the actual number. Yeah, I mean, I don't. But I mean, it was. Oh my God, it was huge. I mean, they actually out of all the countries involved in World War II, they took the worst casualties.
Oh yeah, they did.
Because I mean, it was like, I mean, literally, I don't know the actual number, but it was like 20 million people.
Well, I think it might have even been more. Ultimately, ended up being more than that. But
it could have been. I don't know the actual number, but I'm pretty positive. If I sit there and die on the hill with 20 million people, I'm pretty sure that the hill's bigger than me.
Yeah, like, well, for example, like the Americans, like soldiers, we lost 400,000 people in World War II.
I think it was closer to like 460,000, but between both theaters, but still, 400,000, even say 500,000, which it wasn't 500,000, but 500,000 compared to 20 million. And I think that number is actually a lot higher.
I think World War II, I think I heard a statistic and they said World War II, because it was a world war. I mean, like between, combat, famine, disease, and just all the shit that happened all around the world. Like, I mean, I think India, like they were starving in India at one point. Like, I think World War II possibly led to the death of 60 million people around the world.
That shocks me not in the least.
Yeah. I mean, it's the numbers are just unreal. So Danny, what have you got? What have you got to share with us this morning? Because we're just going on about.
We're rambling about shit.
Well, no, actually, the atrocities and the numbers. Do you remember in World War II? Freeze, you might. You're a history buff. The German general that they assassinated outside of a town called Ladies, and the Germans burned the entire town down.
That was Reinhard Henrik.
That, so 60 million people overall versus, an entire town. Yeah, people are capable of those.
When they assassinated him, they killed everyone in the town. They burned the town down and they dozed it. And the town actually, they erased the town off the fucking map.
Yes, they did.
What country was that in? Was that in
that was
Czechoslovakia?
Czechoslovakia. Yes. Yeah. That was Reinhard Heydrich. He was the guy that was in charge of the final solution with the SS. He was like number 2 guy to Himmler. And
he was up there in the cabinet somewhere.
Oh yeah.
That when you talk about those numbers and the atrocities and all the other things, I can see any number that would be presented in front of me as factual. No, it doesn't bother me at all. Now, what have I got, Marky? Okay, do you want fact or fiction?
We'll start with fact first.
Okay, fact. We all know that the Georgia runoff election is coming, correct?
Yes.
All right. Well, the Georgia Secretary of State just authorized a few days ago, I guess, more mail-in drop boxes for the counties that supposedly didn't have them last time, so that supposedly more mail-in votes could be there, dropped into the boxes. But also, the state of Georgia received 766,000 requests for mail-in ballots, And without checking or any type of authentication, they're calling it just the rollover from the general election, and they're going to send them.
Is that verified information?
Yes.
So basically, what you're saying is with verified information, you have 700,000 potential fraudulent votes. I'm just saying. I mean, if what you're saying is verified, I mean, not saying that all 700,000 of them are fraudulent votes, but it opens the door to a lot of fraudulent voting.
Well, they're saying that it is for the elderly, the disabled, and military votes.
But why didn't they vote in the normal election?
They did, supposedly by mail-in. So on the rollover list, they're all getting votes again by mail without any way of being authenticated if these are even real people they're sending the ballots to.
So these people are being able to vote twice? Or am I not understanding what you're saying?
He's talking about the Senate runoff race.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I understand that. But I mean,
there's another race coming. They're not.
No,
okay.
I understand the runoff race for the Senate. I do, and it's important. It's really important to us. But my point is, are these people that have already voted once and they're getting able to vote twice? I mean, what am I not understanding about this?
The Senate runoff race hasn't happened yet.
Right. Okay, Freeze. Here's what it is. The 766,000 people that did mail-in ballots last time are automatically getting 766,000 people again mail-in ballots for the Senate runoff race.
Okay.
Of those 766,000 ballots that went out for the general election, when they all came back, none of them were really authenticated. So that's 766,000 ballots that are out there again. And to make it easier for those ballots to be dropped off, the Secretary of State in Georgia now has more drop-off ballot boxes in other counties that supposedly seemed to have gone for Trump last time and had no voting issues whatsoever. Now they have drop-off boxes.
That's not making any fucking sense to me.
Okay, all right. Let me enlighten you. Okay, and let me tell you. Let me put this in a way that Fox News won't report it.
Okay, cool.
All the problems with the, like Pennsylvania. You know what? I'm going to back off because I'm gonna handle this in a broad stroke. Okay, there's been challenges to the Trump Biden election, and those challenges. It looks like they've come to an end. At least Monday will be the Electoral College.
Yeah.
And come Monday, I'll probably take the sticker off my gun for those that care.
And you should.
Yeah, but okay. So, but okay. The people that were making the argument that, like, well, if all of these states, if they nullify these elections, and then the state houses. If the state houses can appoint the electors, and there's more of these Republican states than there are Democratic states, or they can appoint people to vote in the Congress, Republicans will have the votes. But here's what people on the Trump side won't. Well, Trump admits this, but a lot of like Fox News and they won't. All these states that have all these ballot problems, that have Republican legislatures. It's the Republicans who fucked all this up. That's what's happened in Georgia. That's what's happening now. That's what happened in Pennsylvania. Is they came up with all these reasons to do all this crazy. You can't secure these ballots. You can't. There's no chain of custody. They're not checking the voter rolls. But a lot of these places where a lot of this stuff has happened are controlled by Republicans. And what's happened in Georgia is the reason this guy, the Georgia Republicans, the governor and the Secretary of State and some of these other people, why they're not backing off of this is they don't want to admit that they made this worse. Republicans have made this worse.
Okay, I get that.
This is not all. This is all the problems with this ballot harvesting and these problems with these ballots is not just all communists and Democrats and leftists. There's Republicans in it too, and I've warned about this for 4 years with Trump. Donald Trump won the presidency, they say, between 50 and 77,000 votes in like 4 states. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, I think it was Wisconsin or something. That is such a small number of votes. It's easy. That's a few statistical points.
Yes.
And it's easy to overcome some of that. And I think it's going to be interesting how history is going to judge the Republican Party going forward. And I think Donald Trump's going to push the gas on this, basically saying the Republicans are not your friends either.
Well,
because Republicans have done as much to derail Trump as anybody else.
But you know what, though? And that's not really any new news, because truly people that are looking for change and truly people that have supported Donald Trump over the past 4 years have realized that the Rhino Republicans are not friends of Trump, and they're not friends of conservative Americans either.
Well, but you know what? If you watch the news today, like if you watch Newsmax, or you watch Fox News, or you watch CNN, they literally run people in circles. And here's a perfect example. Okay, they're talking like just the last couple weeks, it's been the leftists, the communists, the whatever are stealing the election, or are doing all of this stuff. Okay, and like that's what the conservative media would want to tell you. Well, the liberal media will tell you the exact opposite. But the liberal media, they publish stuff, and then they publish the exact opposite weeks later. For example, like Friday or today, CNN's running stories that Secretary of or the Attorney General Barr is, he's not getting along with Trump, and is he going to stay, or is Trump going to fire him? And is Attorney General Barr cannot be intimidated by Donald Trump, but Barr isn't going to let Trump do this or do that, or he's going to stand up because he's got integrity, or all this stuff. These same news outlets on the left, freaking 6-7 weeks ago, or for the past 6 months, have been telling everybody that Bob Barr is going to steal the election for Trump. They're going to use the post office. They're going to remove their mailboxes out of poor neighborhoods. Like, they all do it. Fox News runs stories on AOC to drive people crazy. And CNN runs the same goddamn stories, just on a different, to drive their people crazy, because it's all fan service and it's all bullshit. And that's one thing I'm glad to see. I'm glad to see Fox News is getting bent over on a lot of this.
Well, I tell you what, the OAN News Network, and I've followed them for several years, but I've never really deep dived into them. I follow their feed and all that, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I tell you what, there's, over the course of the past month, there's been several times where the OAN network has actually kicked Fox's ass.
I think Newsmax has been the one doing it. Newsmax has been winning, not OAN. But I went to OAN.
Marky, I think you mean Trump Max. That's the one he wants to buy.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't think Trump's got the money. I don't think Trump's got the money to run a network. That is so much money, you're going to lose and lose and lose money.
You don't think he would have several corporate investors?
Maybe.
Who?
But who knows?
Who?
Trump, to buy that network?
I know. Who? Name one.
Someone from the real conservative rolls, I'm thinking.
Okay, you know what? This is the problem with all of this. This is, okay, look. Mainstream news is failing. Okay, and it has nothing to do with Trump, and it has nothing to do with the fucking election. Okay, it used to be that like MSNBC or NBC, ABC, CBS, they, at 6 o'clock, they were the news channel. And like, and if you were going to watch the news at night, half the country would watch one of these channels. Everybody watches YouTube. Everybody's got different websites. You don't have, you no longer are subjected I don't care if you live in Podunk, Iowa or Podunk, New York, you no longer are relying on your local newspaper and your local news channels to find out what's going on in the world or in your own town. And the thing is, look, you see guys on the internet who have hundreds of thousands and millions and millions and millions of followers. Okay. And maybe they have a YouTube, or podcasting, and maybe they have a studio, maybe they have some production, but what they don't have is they don't have to pay for, they don't have to pay for a field office in New York. They don't have to pay for a field office in Washington. They don't have to pay for a field office in on the West Coast in California. They don't have to pay for a field office in London. They don't have to pay for a field office in either, typically some people do it in France. Some people will do it either in Lebanon or Israel. So they can have a field office, quote, the Middle East, like Christiane Yamanpour. She lives in France, but she covers the Middle East. And then you don't have to have a field office and pay for one in Japan or China to cover Asia. And so it's so much goddamn money to run this stuff. And if you put money into that business model, you are retarded. You are goddamn retarded if you do that. And Donald Trump is a lot of things, but he is not retarded. There's no way. The only way Donald Trump gets a news channel is if he buys one. If he buys Newsmax, maybe, but I just, I don't, the economics are not there.
Well, and also, you got to look at his age. Donald Trump's not a young man. And does he want to get into this endeavor? Look, I mean, he lost this election. Whether you can say he legitimately lost it or illegitimately lost it, it doesn't matter. He lost this election. When on January 20th, when he walks out of the White House, he's done. At his age, does he really want to get into buying a news network? Maybe he does, but...
Okay, but let's take it to its logical example, okay? He's not starting one. I got news for everybody. He's not starting one. Look, if Donald Trump wants to start an internet website, YouTube type channel, he can do it because he's got the same overhead we do. Okay, so he could do that, and he could do that, or he could buy Newsmax. But here's the reality. Okay, so let's say he buys these. Just hypothetically, how is this supposed to work? And they call it Trump TV, or they call it Newsmax, or News Trump, or whatever they want to call it. How much money is Donald Trump going to spend? He's not going to spend any money. What Donald Trump would do is the way he runs a lot of his businesses. A lot of the Trump hotels around the world are not owned by Donald Trump. Did you guys know that? They're not.
I did not.
They're licenses of names. That's how Donald Trump makes their license of their name. Their name,
really,
license.
Like a franchise.
Yeah, like most hotels are like that. And so Donald Trump could work out some deal where maybe he gets a licensing deal with Newsmax, and maybe they would try to license his name. But here's the thing: what does he bring to Newsmax right now? Like, he's hot now. Donald Trump's hot. But where's Donald Trump going to be in 2 years? Like, in 2 years as a country, we will have an idea, all of us, whether Donald Trump's going to run again or whether he's going to be like, yeah, dude, I'm moving to Florida. I'm living in Florida. I'm not doing this. But the thing is, let's say he's involved in Newsmax. I don't see Donald Trump trying to run a news channel. They may give him a slot like Sean Hannity and be like, it's the Trump hour. And then Donald Trump would show up there for, because it's Trump TV, and our president and CEO, from between 8 and 9 o'clock, he competes with Tucker Carlson, and it's the Trump news hour, and Trump can get up there and rant and rave, whatever he wants to say. But I don't think Donald Trump is going to put the work in day in and day out to run. He's not. I don't. Donald Trump is mentally in a position that he wants to build something from the ground up.
See,
he may license his name.
And I totally agree with you on that. I mean, you have look. If Donald Trump was 20 years younger, I would say bring it on. I think he would do it. But look, he's not a young man. It costs a lot of money. I just don't see it happening. I mean, personally, from a personal point of view, I'd love to see it happen. I just don't think it will.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Freeze. Oh, and before I forget, speaking about our political part of the show, did you happen to see where Schumer and a couple others, AOC and whoever else, are pressuring Biden on day one to write an executive order to forgive any and all student debt?
I have not heard that.
I've seen grumblings, or you've been working. I've seen grumblings about it. But see, the thing is, that's been a thing for a while. And see, like, okay, look, AOC is not Schumer. AOC is not a politician. I mean, AOC is not a legislator. What does AOC do? She's in Congress.
She was Employee of the Month for Goya. Did you see that?
I heard that, but that's cute. But again, that's owning the libs. That's just fan service for good for Goya. Good for them for doing that. But here's the thing: what does AOC do? Again, the only thing AOC does is she AOC. If you go to Washington, you go to work in Congress. Okay, look, Danny, congratulations from the 1st District of Illinois. You're now going to represent downstate Illinois, like you're a conservative, okay? And so you come from a state that's dominated. You come from a state that's dominated by liberals up around Chicago, but you believe in gun rights and smaller government, whatever. How are you going to actually function? You are going to go to Congress. You're going to keep your head down because you're going to be a freshman congressman, and you're going to take whatever goddamn committee assignments they give you. Like, hey, guess what? You're close enough to Iowa. You're going to go onto the farm committee because reasons, even though it may not be what you're interested in, but you're going to put your time in with the party inside of Congress, and you're going to start to build coalitions. You're going to start to build relationships. You're going to start to, being part of you seeing bills come up on things you care about. Like, hey, you call Congressman so-and-so's office, like, hey, I'm going to have a staff member send a copy of that over. We want to review that. We want to maybe come in. We definitely vote on that. You start building a reputation as a legislature. The only thing AOC does in Congress is she gets on Twitter and she gets on the internet. She's not a congresswoman. She's just some activist. She's literally not a legislator.
No, she's a populist activist.
No, you know what she is? She's a meme generator. She generates more fucking memes for the conservative side than anyone. Mm-hmm. No one's generating memes about Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer, but they're generating a shit ton of memes about AOC. As a matter of fact, I saw a meme yesterday. It was a screenshot of the panel from like Let's Make a Deal or whatever the game show is. And it had 3 candidates. AOC was in the middle. They obviously photoshopped her into it. And the candidate to the right had like $4,000 whatever dollars, and the candidate to the left had like $3,000 or $5,000 in change. And AOC's screen, what she bid was free. I mean, and again, is it a great meme? No, it's not a great meme. But the point is, she generates a lot of fucking memes.
She generates traffic for conservative news outlets to get people all riled up.
Yeah.
AOC, like, okay, let's talk about the debt thing, like the student debt thing. Like, okay, if we're going to get rid of student debt, I mean, I can make an argument for that, I guess. I mean, you're not really getting rid of it. You're making all of us pay for it. But here's the thing.
And that's the thing.
But again, this is an example. This is an example of the media, Fox News and CNN, not doing the American voter any service. The issue is not getting rid of student debt. That's not the issue. That's not the goddamn issue at all. the issue is, okay, we get rid of student debt on Monday. The issue is Tuesday. Now what do we do? Are we going to revamp how we do this kind of stuff in this country? Are we going to allow kids to go to Princeton and spend $60,000 or $100,000 a year to get a degree in, like, you know, I don't know, sociology? You know, it's like maybe there should be a whole new structure set up as far as who's going to, you know, what kind of financial aid are we going to give to people for what kind of degrees they're going to get? And maybe we should do it relative to, you know, what we need that's best for the country.
So, Marky, you don't think by them trying to forgive the student debt that it's just a precursor to the free college that these liberals have been pushing?
Sure it is. Because, well, getting rid of student debt is really just a bailout for colleges. Because, but to go back to my Tuesday argument, okay, all right, I don't know off the top of my head because I used to know this. Harvard University has a lot of these high-end universities have endowments where, you know, people donate money or they leave their estate to these colleges and they build up this giant nest egg of money, and then they have the interest off of it to pay for things. Harvard University they have billions and billions of dollars in endowments. They make so much money off their endowments just on the interest returns. Nobody should have to pay. If this is important to you, going to Harvard should be free, and Harvard should not charge anybody. Like, here's the thing. Why do I have to pay for someone like AOC to go to Harvard when Harvard doesn't need the money? Harvard can literally pay for it themselves. The real conversation isn't student debt. The real conversation is, how are we actually going to do shit like this going forward? Because right now in America, you try to hire a plumber or electrician or someone to HVAC guy, you're waiting fucking weeks or months. There's so much work.
Okay, but you know, it's a bigger issue than that. Like a lot of the colleges they have formed a doctorate program where, like, okay, for example, physical therapists and pharmacists now have to have doctorates, where before they had to have an equivalent of a master's. Okay, so it gets you to take an extra year or two of college at God knows whatever they're fucking charging for a degree that now all of a sudden you have a doctorate, which you don't really fucking need.
Well, now wait a minute. Hold on. Now hold on for a minute. Let's back off there for a second, because let's talk about your physical therapist and your pharmacist. And while we're at it, let's talk about lawyers and let's talk about engineers, because nobody wants to admit this, but this is the truth. A physical therapist, a pharmacist, a lawyer, or an engineer is a trade.
Yes.
It's a trade.
Yes, it is.
Look, I have no goddamn problem with someone having to get a PharmD, a farm doctor is what Freeze is referring to. Become a pharmacist.
It's a PharmD.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. That's a skill. You go on a track. You're like, I'm going to be a pharmacist. I'm going to go to school to be a pharmacist. I'm going to go to school to be a lawyer. I'm going to go to school to be a mechanic. I'm going to go to school to be an electrician. You know, a lot of these people, they're going to school. They're going to school to really just get a degree so they can supposedly be this well-rounded person, but they don't have any job skills. And while we are on top of it, while we're on this subject, most people that go to college, they pay for financial aid, they get financial aid, they don't even graduate, so they're not even getting the goddamn degrees. And this is even true in law school. Most people that go to law school don't even end up practicing law. Why do you think half these goddamn anchors on these news channels are with the goddamn law school? Because law school is just a finishing school to do something else. And this entire college system is set up right now. It's a giant money pump for these liberal universities. They don't have to educate kids. They don't have to be held responsible. And here's the thing. They get free money whether their colleges need it or not. But, you know, a trade school, you know, for like an electrician or for a plumber or a guy that can any of that stuff. Like, oh, that's you can't do that. That's terrible. Don't want to do that kind of stuff. It's all bullshit. I don't care about forgiving student loans. How I care about is what we do moving forward. And nobody's talking about it.
There is someone talking about it. You know who's talking about it? Mike Rowe. Mike Rowe from the TV show Dirty Jobs. He's talking about it because he shouts from the church tops, go to trade school, don't go to college, because he's a guy who understands what it's about to work with your hands. And he also understands about college debt ratio to job earning income. I mean, telling you, now granted, he's in the minority, but there are people talking about it, because there are people out there smart enough to realize that, having a doctorate in social media doesn't mean goddamn dick. But having a degree in electrical engineering means you're going to make a lot of fucking money and you're going to have a career for the rest of your life.
It used to be you didn't go to college if there was basically a very little chance you were going to graduate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, another thing is, look how many high schools have just dropped basic shop classes.
Oh no, it's even worse than that. No, hold on. Let me say that again, and then I will address what you just said about high schools. It used to be you didn't go to college if no one thought you actually could graduate. Okay? Let that hang for a bit, because that was the truth.
Yeah.
Nobody went to college to fail out. Now let's go back to the high school thing. It used to be you didn't go to college unless you could pass entrance exams to get into college. But now the high schools are so fucked up. How many kids go into college now? Okay, I'm going to university, not community college, 4-year university, where it's like, well, little Johnny, he took an entrance exam. The reality is he can't do college level math. He can't do college level English. It's like, so he's got to take remedial classes in college. And there's been so many of these that now the colleges are trying to finish what the high schools can't do. And it's gotten to be so bad. Because 70 or 50, 60, 70% of people that go to college don't even graduate. You got kids going into colleges on student loans that aren't qualified to be there because they can't function at a college level. They're taking remedial high school classes in college. In 2 years, they're dropping out. They don't have anything to show for it. So now the colleges are forcing kids. You go to college to get your bachelor's degree, but they're forcing kids into a 2-year associate's degree program because most kids are going to college and not even, I have some college and now I have this or I have that. And they end up with maybe an associate's degree in they took some remedial classes and they get an associate's degree in liberal arts or independent studies. This is how fucked up all of this is.
Yeah.
Oh, and here's the best part. Oh, here's the cherry on top, everybody. Kids from China get to come here and get to the front of the line and go to all of our colleges, and they get to learn all of our technology. They get to spy on all of our industry, so they can take that shit back to China so they can fucking kill us in 30 years.
For free. For free.
In many cases, for free.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, look, Marky, remind me. Now, I'm not going to talk about it on pod, but remind me in a day or two to tell you about my experience at Cincinnati State University.
Okay. We'll talk about that on pod.
We'll talk about it off pod. But this is an interesting story, but it's not pod worthy.
We can't talk. If you're not going to tell it, we're not going to. It won't be off pod. So
no, it'll be off pod. But I do want to talk to you about it. So
okay.
Well, hey, Freeze, I have a simple question for you. You take any high school. How many of those kids, say out of a graduating senior class, could go to a welding machine and run a bead or know what a 16-inch center is or anything like that? I'll bet you it's not even 1.1%.
Okay, so now we have here in Cincinnati, I don't know what it's like in your podunk, Illinois town. No offense meant, Danny.
No, I get. I'm a prisoner here, so it doesn't matter.
We have three major trade schools here in Cincinnati. Diamond Oaks.
On the high school level?
No, on a high school level. It's Diamond Oaks, Scarlet Oaks, and there's another Oaks. I don't remember what it is. But what they do is they take high school kids that they know they're not going to go to college. They're basically trade school
material.
People. Yes. And they teach them auto mechanics, welding, and whatnot. And they do it. I have a guy I grew up with who went to Diamond Oaks for welding when he was in high school, and he is a successful welder to this day. Now, honestly, I mean, I'm 55 fucking years old, so this was a few years ago. I don't know how it works today, but the truth is we do have trade schools here in the city of Cincinnati that actually do teach kids trades.
But hold on. I'm going to interrupt you there, Freeze, because you're actually making my point, and I know what Danny's asking. Here's the problem: you have identified these three institutions that have become they're magnet schools of some kind. I didn't know they were high schools, but it doesn't matter. They're magnet schools of some kind for people that are like, hey, I'm going to go and do this, or I'm going to go and do that. It used to be that when you graduated high school, that you had a well-rounded education. It used to be people could balance a checkbook. They would learn that in high school. Here's the thing: a lot of times, the problem with that system, Freeze, is those schools are set up remotely, not at your high school, and so you are denying children in the high schools, in the regular school system, the opportunities to even experience and maybe discover something that they like or they're good at. They have to commit to it and basically say, go to this trade school and I'm not on a college track, which is completely frowned upon in today's society. Like, oh, you're a loser. You're going to go to the Diamond Oaks school or something. You're not going to try to go to college, little Johnny. I mean, it's like it used to be that you could graduate from high school and you knew some basic shit. Like, you knew something about history. You could balance a checkbook. You could put a hammer to a nail. And, maybe you could pump gas in your own car.
You know what? You're absolutely right with what you're saying. And you know what? You're one of the things with you being absolutely right is the fact that it absolutely sucks.
Well, when I'm older than both you guys, and when I went to high school, for boys, shop classes were mandatory.
Well, I went to a private school, so we didn't have shop classes. I went to a private school in the 80s.
Hold on. I'm going to stop you right there. Let me ask you this question.
Yes.
I'll bet you your private school that doesn't have shop class, I bet you it had a fully functioning art department, though, didn't it?
Yeah, God damn it. Yeah, motherfucker, it did.
There you go.
Okay.
There you fucking go. Right there.
Okay, hold on a second.
Go ahead.
Hold on a second here. I went to a private school. I went to a private grade school and a private high school where my parents paid tuition. It was not fucking free. It wasn't on the dole. Not saying that public schools are on the dole. I mean, I'm not disparaging public schools. My parents paid my tuition all through grade school and high school. It was a religious-based high school. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we didn't have shop classes. But you know what? We did have a class freshman year. In my freshman year, we had a class called Accounting 101, where they actually gave you a packet which gave you a blank checkbook and a debit and credit balance ledger, and you learned how to do things. I mean, Look,
That's
I
good.
understand this was in the 80s. It was different. But, I mean,
Yeah.
the thing is, they taught you more college prep business things. Now, if you were a guy, or, well, I say a guy because, well, honestly, there were no women because we had a separate women's based high school because, you know, hey, we were religious. If you were a guy
Y'all fucking
who
like
was,
rabbits.
yeah, whatever, who's going to be a welder, there was still Diamond Oaks. I mean, there was there.
How many? But like even your school that's better than most schools. Like here's the thing. I didn't ask you if they had an art class.
Yes.
Listen. I want the listener at home. I asked Freeze, and I didn't even know this. Bet you they had an art department.
Yes, they did.
He's like, yes, they did, and it's like, there you go.
Now I'll tell you what. Yeah, and I'll throw you a bonus, Marky. If anyone wants to do the research.
Are you going to tell me how great your fucking art department was?
No. I'm not saying it's great. But if anyone wants to do the research and they want to search the Cincinnati Enquirer, which is our local newspaper, and you want to do a Google search for Jim Borgman, who was a cartoonist who did the editorial cartoons for the Cincinnati Enquirer newspaper. He was the head teacher and the head instructor of the art department in my high school. So there you go.
Okay.
Well,
all right. Well,
Freeze, did you happen to see the picture of the hammer I sent for Marky so he could always hit a nail?
You know what? I did, and I looked at it, and I thought, wow, that is just something Danny would send.
Okay, you know what? So what they did is they sent over a photograph with a hammer, and it had welded to the top of it a red dot sight. So
No, it wasn't. No. Hold on a second, Marky. It wasn't welded. It was JB welded, and there's a difference.
That's JB welded. Only an AK builder would know what JB weld is. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, all right. So I'll tell you what. So we've gone kind of long here. So this wraps up episode 196 of the John1911 Podcast. If you want to see any stories or pictures and links of everything we discussed, please go to our website, john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good day.
See you later.
Bye-bye.